Thanks to the serialized cards in Brothers War, we can take a stab at understanding Magic's collector box print run numbers. Well, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. I hope you're having yourself a fantastic day. Sorry that this video is so late. For those of you who watch the channel every day, I was hanging out with my family today. So I guess I'm not sorry, but finally today I get to have a conversation with you guys about Brothers War collector boxes. Particularly in my Discord server today, we were talking a little bit about the understanding what might be the print run numbers based on the serialized cards that are within the collector boxes. If you weren't understanding this, if you weren't aware of this, in each collector booster pack, there is one foil alt art frame in a rare or mythic. And in less than 1% of those slots, there is a serialized card that has like a, it's got like a, it looks really cool. It's a rainbow foiling on it, and it's a 1 in 500 serialized card. So that comes in 1% of booster packs, of collector booster packs. So from this, we can take a stab at understanding Magic the Gathering's print run numbers based on less than 1%, which is the quote is. So there are 63 serialized options in the set, which is a lot. We've talked about that a couple times on the channel. That's a lot of different serialized options. This is actually going to be very interesting to see how this kind of plays out and see if this is just too many different serialized cards and different options. It'd be super interesting. But those 63 serialized cards each have one of 500 on them. So that makes a total of 31,500 serialized cards that are within less than 1% of the collector booster packs. So what this means, if you multiply out the numbers and do all the maths, what that means is that there are a minimum of 3.15 million packs of this, which equates out to 262,000 collector booster boxes. And this is a worldwide statistic because they have said that those serialized cards are in English, but in all the products worldwide in the different languages. So that is a minimum at 1%. And what they said is less than 1%, but we're gonna use that 1% to kind of understand the numbers. If you if you want to see what the numbers do, it actually goes the opposite direction than it went in my mind. If you go where it's 0.5%, so half of 1%, this would be a minimum of 525,000 booster boxes worldwide. But we're gonna use the 262,000 box number to have the conversation. I think it sounds on the surface, it sounds like a really big number to me, especially somebody who comes from some of these alternative TCGs. We've seen what the damage to a market can do when your print runs aren't controlled. And we've seen what can happen when you announce your print runs and the rest of the market doesn't really agree with it. So it's gonna be super interesting to take a stab at this and see what does the Magic community really need in terms of a print size of a collector's product, of a premium collector's product. So you have to take a look at player size in order to understand how this affects box sizes or what it will do to potential box prices. So what we do know based on statistics on the internet, and I will try to cite my sources on the screen here, is that currently on Arena there is 6.5 million active players. I know you're like, Louie, Arena doesn't matter, they're not opening packs. I totally understand. I'm just trying to give you some numbers to evaluate here to see the size of Magic the Gathering and then make a decision for yourself. Do you think that collector boosters are going to be worth it to purchase or to hold sealed or to open or whatever you want to do? So Arena, there are 6.5 million players and there's 108,000 players, active players per day. That's a pretty good number. Previous Grand Prix of Magic the Gathering in Vegas, the previous Grand Prix averaged about 11,000 attendees at the Grand Prix. So that's like the high competitive play for Magic the Gathering at 11,000. Geek and Sundry recently, last year, estimated that there are 40 million active players in Magic the Gathering. And I think that number combines tabletop Magic as well as Arena Magic, but it's also like kind of a shot in the dark. Well, one of the statistics I found actually comes from Mark Rosewater on his blog. This was from 2014, where he said there are 21.87 million active players for Magic the Gathering. Now, This is an impossible task to evaluate, and I've taken a stab at having this video to kind of get the ball rolling, get the conversation going. I would love to know, based on some of those numbers or based on other numbers that maybe you have evidence for, I would love to know what your thoughts are based on the print run of maybe 300,000 boxes to those numbers of players. Where does this fit in, and what should the print run be? And if you were Wizards of the Coast, if you were Hasbro, what would you say a healthy print run is for the market? I'm very curious of that. I'm gonna take a stab at it myself. I'm gonna put myself out there. I would love if you would put yourself out there in the comment section below. I think here's my take. Paper Magic is down significantly due to the pandemic. The pandemic came around, we all kind of lost touch with some of our friends. A lot of people maybe stopped playing Magic at their store and just never went back. There's been a lot of downticks in Paper Magic since the pandemic. Now that is starting to pick back up. That is starting to become, revitalized. We had the Magic 30th event this past weekend. It's starting to become obviously it's a norm now for people to get back together, but some of those people who walked away from Magic are coming back, and now we have new players that are also coming into the fold. But I still believe that numbers are down in terms of paper gaming across the board. But on the flip side of that, the pandemic demand was absolutely insane. Everybody had stimulus checks that they were blowing on product everywhere, left and right. And then everybody was also bored because you couldn't get together with your friends. Inevitably, you still wanted to partake in the hobby. So a lot of people bought boxes just to open, to collect or play with their friend. Maybe it's your wife. I played games of Magic with my wife and we opened up packs. I had never done that before with my wife. So the pandemic caused this kind of insane demand. And we know, based on previous conversations, based on previous announcements from Wizards of the Coast, based on their conversations on the internet and stuff like that, that they use data from 2 to 3 years back in order to make decisions on sets for the future, that they are always kind of working. In other words, right now, today's information is kind of gearing up for 2 to 3 years in the future. And so we can take a look 2 or 3 years in the past, we were kind of in the middle of the pandemic. 2 years ago, we were in the middle of the pandemic. So I think that this number might be heavily inflated as a result of the pandemic. In my store locally, and this is the only data that I can share with you, in my store locally and online, I sell very few collector boxes. I would guess 1 in 10 Magic the Gathering players who go to local game stores and actually partake in the game, I would guess 1 in 10 probably buy a booster box. And lower than that is collector box. It's hard to evaluate what percentage buys a booster box. But if you take that 25 million players, if you say, okay, from 2014, I'm trying to just like keep it on the even keel. If you say from 2014, we grew and then the pandemic happened, we kind of dipped back down. If you say there's 25 million players, and if you say 75% of them, which we know this from Mark Rosewater, 75% of them aren't entrenched. They're just playing at the kitchen table with old cards, or they're playing with like pre-con decks. They're not buying and cracking boxes. So if you say 75% of those don't exist, aren't going to buy these boxes, that leaves 6.125 million players that are entrenched in the game, which would mean, based on the 300,000 boxes, between 275 and 300,000 boxes, that there's a collector box for 1 in every 22 people who are entrenched in Magic the Gathering. It's a really hard thing to evaluate. I actually think that the print run number of 200 and 300,000 boxes is too high. 1 in 22 people, I don't think buy a collector box. I think that this is going to be a really interesting set to evaluate. You have some really, really spicy stuff in those collector packs. You also have a 1% chance of hitting the foil shattered frame Transformers cards, which I think have a potential to be pretty good based on just the comments that I'm seeing and the evaluation I'm seeing. So you have 2 1 in 100 chances here to hit some pretty big money cards in the collector boxes. But that's still a lot of boxes. and maybe I'm just caught up in the old TCGs. The old new TCG Louis is coming back here, but I think that 300,000 seems a little high to me, especially in this current economic crisis thing that we're in. So I'm very curious what you think. I personally think that these boxes are going to follow the path of Dominaria. I think they're going to go down below the $200 mark. You know, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm going to be cracking a bunch of them on Monday or Tuesday on the channel. We're going to be live cracking a bunch of them. So join me here. Hope you have yourself a fantastic day. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to be kind to the people around you, and we'll see you again next video.